it's setting up. Hey everybody, this is your girl Tawana B from Not Your Normal Conversation. I'm here with Domingos DaRosa. Domingo, say hello to everybody.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, everybody.
So, Domingos, we're just going to jump right into it. Okay?
Go ahead.
All right. So, Domingos, you're a husband and a father of four, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you came to the United States in 1978 from where? Where did you come from in
I
1978?
was born on the island of Fogo. I migrated to America when I was a little under 9 months.
Okay. And so you basically lived here all of your life.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So you say that you've lived in Roxbury, Dorchester, and now have Hyde Park. Is that correct?
Yeah, I grew up on Landon Street in Roxbury off of Dudley Street, next to the Emerson School, where my family owned property. Then we moved a few streets over to East Cottage, which is the first line of Dorchester. We were there for a while, about 17 years. And then my dad bought another property in Dorchester in the Bowdoin area where we lived and currently still own the house on Draper.
Right. So what were the things that you saw in the community that made you determined to engage in becoming a community activist?
Well, I mean, at first you don't see it as that. You know, I'm just a kid in the neighborhood who grew up being nurtured by my neighbors. We had a sense of community. You know, I had an Italian to the right of me. I had two Italians to the right of me, one Irish to the left of me, Puerto Ricans across the street, blacks up the street. So we were a very diverse community. So having that kind of support was a great thing to have.
Right. So you've worked for the city of Boston for 21 years. Is that right?
A little over 21 years. I started off as a junior lifeguard and moved my ways through the ranks of lifeguarding. Lifeguarding changed my life. It gave me a sense of ownership of something that, you know, out of everyone in my neighborhood, I was the lifeguard. Like
right. So you have a sense of community. Although you're from another country, you've never experienced anything there because you've been here your whole life since you were 9 months old. So what does your sense of community look like? What does community look like to you?
Well, for me, community is your neighbors, to the left, to the right, behind you, in front of you, in the corner store, the cleaners, the Chinese restaurant, you know, to and from school. So, you know, for me, community is every and anyone around you, even the folks who are displaced. I grew up on Dudley Street. We had a huge population of users and abusers. You know what I mean? But it was our community. You know, the individuals who stood in front of the liquor store was like our neighborhood uncles. Like they would tell us, don't do this and don't do that, even though they had their habits, but they made sure that we had some sense of respect between the youth and the adults.
Right. So why is community so important to you?
Because that's who helped shape me. You know, my next door neighbor watched us when my mother was at work. My next door neighbor watched us when my dad was at work. When we were short on something, We would exchange things. My father naturally was a gardener. He was raised on farming, so
Right.
he spent years farming. So all my neighbors would get a bag at the end of the year. You know, if it was tomatoes or green peppers or cucumbers,
Right.
we would share the wealth with our neighbors because they would share with us.
Right. Right. So it's like taking a village to raise a child, so to speak. And
Oh
that's
yeah, oh yeah. We've always had that village upbringing.
right.
You couldn't talk back to your neighbors.
Absolutely. That's the same way I grew up. So I know exactly what you're speaking of. So it appears that you have no problem with pushing back when it comes to making sure that the city you love remains safe for everyone that lives there. You're all over the news. You've been in newspapers. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, when I say we, our community, our Black community,
Right.
we've been stressed. We've been on edge for decades, centuries.
Right.
You know, the more we look into the past, the more we see why, you know, my generation and the generations after me are experiencing the frustration. So
Right. Right.
I'm not the person to be, you know, I'm gonna contest any and everything. I just was raised like that. Like I was raised to question everything
Right.
because my parents didn't speak English, so I had to translate at a young age. So
Right.
why, who, where, what, right? So I've always been like that. So when someone says to me, "I can't," we didn't have that word in our house. My dad didn't use "I can't."
Right. Right. So it's I will or I'm going to do.
Right.
And that's it. So what are some of the things you've done in the community to start changing the way that you were treated by City Hall and by your local police?
Well, you know, at a young age, I was assaulted by about a dozen police officers, Black, white, Spanish, you name it. They had fun with me. Don't get me wrong, I had fun with them too. Right. So I wear my unarmed hat for a reason. So, you know, when it comes to that subject, you know, I try to educate all of us because even grown folks don't know their rights. We just go by what people tell us. We don't look into the law, to the actual language of the law. We just go, "Oh, you ain't supposed to do it," and we leave it at that because that's how we were raised not to really contest that kind of authority. So I try to educate, you know, my peers on what is your rights. Your First Amendment right is a constitutional right. They can't violate that
Right.
without having some recourse.
Right.
And we don't know that. We think, you know, people say, "Oh, freedom of speech." No, listen, it's First Amendment. That falls under it. Freedom of religion falls under it. Freedom of press falls under it.
Right.
So there's things that we don't teach ourselves until we put ourselves into situations that we have to learn the law.
Right. So I have to ask you this question. You said you were assaulted by the police. What was that experience like for you? And how old were you when this happened?
I was a senior in high school. So, you know, I was about 17, 18, Black kid from the neighborhood. Already, I'm going through identity crisis, being Cape Verdean, growing up with all these different people, not understanding the full aspects of my culture, you know, facing discrimination within my own Black community. You know, you're not Puerto Rican, then what are you? You're not
Right.
Dominican, then what are you? So that experience was frightening because I was 17. I thought police were supposed to help me.
Right.
But instead, I got 20 stitches, a dislocated shoulder, footprints all over my body. And then I was harassed continuously by different officers from that day forward.
Right. So what did that look like to your parents who brought you here, in a sense, to give you a better life and give you stability and to give you hope? What did that look like to them?
They didn't understand it because, you know, us Blacks, you know, from the dawn of time, since the police departments were ever established, you run from them.
Right.
You don't run to them, you run from them because of what they were originally used for. So my parents didn't have that education behind what police were used for. They only had that image of police are supposed to help,
Right.
supposed to protect and serve.
Right.
So if this happened, what did I do? There was never a question about what they did
Right.
or how they did it. It was always, what did you do?
Right.
So that kind of gave me this little tough outside shell. Like, no matter what I do, I'm always in trouble. I can do the right thing, I can do the wrong thing. I'm always in trouble. I'm always going to be the one that they point their fingers at because I asked one too many questions in class, or I said something that wasn't said right, you know. So I grew up knowing that my future was going to be one way or the other, and I didn't want that. I didn't want to hear what people would say to us. Oh, you're going to be dead by 21, or you're going to be in jail, and I didn't want to hear that because that's not me. That's not what my family's taught me. That's not what my neighbors taught me. That's not what I felt inside.
So you protested outside of Charlie Baker's house on more than one occasion. However, the last time you ran into some trouble. Can you talk to me about that?
Well, I'm going to say, you know, again, keep the narrative the way we've been doing it. We were demonstrating. We're not protesting anyone who's looking for services, folks on Mass Cass and Marty's Mile, Methadone Mile, Recovery Road. We're not protesting them per se. What we're doing is we're demonstrating our First Amendment rights to bring awareness to the fact that the services are not working. The services are taking federal, state, and local funding, and they're using it in a way that we don't see positive results. So we're asking for the governor to increase his efforts. $4 million for an issue that has 2,400 individuals who have overdosed in 2020, right? That's more than car accidents. That's more than gun violence. That's more than a lot of things that we speak about when people lose their lives. So how is it that the state of Massachusetts only puts in $4 million to deal with something that has to do with a few different categories? So $4 million is going to substance abuse, it's going to homelessness, it's going to job training. So how do we break it down when we have a population that's a little more than what the funds can help?
Absolutely. So when you did this demonstration to recreate the methadone mile in front of Charlie Baker's house, what gave you the idea to do that? What was going through your mind at the time when you decided, hey, this is exactly what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to go about doing it? And by the way, kudos to you for putting up those orange cones, which no one speaks about, to make sure that no one came out and touched those needles, to make sure that they knew those orange cones meant danger. Don't go past there. I'm just alerting you that there's something there that I want you to see. Because a lot of people don't speak about that in itself. They talk about the needles and what happened outside of Governor Baker's house, but no one speaks about what you did to make sure that they knew that there was something behind those cones. So what gave you the idea to recreate what they call methadone mile in front of Governor Baker's house?
We wanted to illustrate a little bit of what residents and constituents and taxpayers, you know, like the politicians like to use it, taxpayers, we the taxpayers, right? What we experience every day and how we experience it. It wasn't to cause harm. It wasn't to intimidate. It wasn't to harass anybody. It was to shine a light on a subject that in our eyes has been neglected, and the Black community has been neglected for decades.
Right.
And now that the population, as they try to control the narrative, changing the population, but the reality is that population is not the one that's mostly impacted. It's the Black and brown community who continues to be impacted by the war on drugs, right? So we were just trying to give neighbors, passersby, individuals who were in the area to, hey, what's going on over there? And it did. They came over. Hey, what's going on? What are you guys here doing? Well, we're demonstrating on this issue that we're suffering in Roxbury, South End, Mattapan, Dorchester, here in Boston, and we would like your help to address it at the governor's level. Right. And we was received with positive feedback from neighbors of the governor. We made sure, again, like you said, we put cones down. We spoke to the detailed officer before we started. Right. You know, I'm probably the only Black man that's ever had his hands in his pockets talking to a state police trooper without having guns drawn. Right. Because my demeanor wasn't there to cause harm to anybody or intimidate anybody or make anyone feel uncomfortable. We were there to say, hey, listen, man, we need help. How else can we gain your attention? We've emailed you. We've called.
Right.
We've showed up at the State House. We showed up at City Hall. We showed up at community meetings. We're knocking and we're knocking and we're knocking, and it seems like no one wants to answer us. So how do we gain someone's attention who basically looks past and through us?
Now, you're going to see me smile because I applaud you and I stand with you as far as what you did. And if I was standing next to you, I wouldn't have backed down one bit. I agree with you that the governor needs to look at this because he doesn't pass by Mass Ave or Melanina Cask every day. So he doesn't see the severity of what our children are seeing in the community, what people who are going to work are seeing in the community, what people who live in the community are seeing. Because there's officers sitting out there on a daily basis. And I've driven by there so many times and I've never once seen one of them I've seen them fighting. I've seen them using, unfortunately, amongst other things. And never once has the detailed officer got out of the car and said, hey, listen, this is not okay. I've seen them nodding off, almost being in the middle of the street to the point where they're going to get hit and nothing has happened. So you took this stance. And instead of people saying, hey, maybe this was a great idea, maybe this is something that I need to look at, they decided to take you to court and get a protective order. How did that feel for you when that happened?
I got mixed feelings about that. I guess you could say that, the person inside me, I felt like crap. Like, damn, I got another case on my court. Like, I got to deal with I got to see the judge again for some BS. But the person outside of me was like, is that all you got? Is that all you can find to hold me accountable for what you're not doing?
Right.
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate the fact that you sent 3 different police departments to intimidate me in front of my 11-year-old who sat there and bawled out crying because they didn't have the respect to say, hey, you know what, his kid's here. Let's not jump out 12 cruisers deep. Let's give the man some kind of level of respect. But, even before that, how about a phone call, Mr. Governor? How about having one of your community liaisons make a phone call and say, hey, Domingos, can we have a conversation with you off record or on record or wherever you want to do it? And can we come to a happy medium? Is there something that we can do to get you to back off? Or maybe something that you can do that okay, we can address that? And this is why when I engaged with the officer, I said it to him, yo, I got needles with me. I'm gonna place him on the sidewalk.
Okay.
What do you think? As long as you don't put him on his steps, you got no issue with us.
Okay.
So I put it down. So then at the end of the day, are you picking up the needles? Officer, there's no point of me bringing them here to put them down and then pick them up. Oh, we don't have a system to pick them up. Say that again. So my ears now are listening, right? My eyes are moving around. People, the little things inside my head are running. And I'm like, you don't have a shops team?
Right.
So the following Sunday, I made sure that I put a 311 report in to illustrate the issue in hand. That it's okay for Boston to have a shops team. It's okay for Boston to have a poop team. Like we're paying people to pick up human feces off of people's doorsteps because this thing has grown to an issue that it's uncontrollable. It's a tsunami that's going to be ripping through Massachusetts because we continue to allow elected officials to walk by us, to disregard us, to treat us less than because I don't have a PhD in front of my name.
So you spoke about your quarry and this being another thing attached to it. That hasn't stopped you from still being out in the community, representing the community, demonstrating in the community. Because I watched you a couple of weeks back out in the community. And I think that I applaud you. Some people would have stopped after the protective order was issued, but you took it a step further. You've gone to other communities and said, hey, listen, don't let your community end up like ours, riddled with needles and things that our kids don't need to see. What was your feedback from the mayor or any city official from Somerville?
They never reached out to me. Again, like I said, I don't have a PhD in front of my name. I don't have a resume to come into a meeting and speak 45 minutes and tell you what I ain't doing, because what I'm telling you I ain't doing. I'm just telling you what's on paper. So, folks, again, I'm an average person, and that's what I'm telling everybody. Listen, we are the people. We start the first few lines of the Constitution, we the people.
Right.
Now, once we get deeper into it, there's things in there that, we want to fix, but the first few words, we the people. I don't have to have a salary attached to my community to help my community. And this is where the issue comes into play. Folks who are supposed to help us now are getting the bag, so the bag is bigger than the help. So if we correct this issue, there's programs who are losing 3, 4, 5, 10, $15 million in funding. We want to end homelessness. We want to end substance addiction, because we don't want to use abuse, because abuse brings it into another conversation. It takes away the humanity part about it, because I'm abusing something. No, I'm not abusing this. I have a medical disease, and it's put on paper that I have this disease. So why are we capitalizing on someone's pain and suffering when we're giving Boston Medical $46 million to do research? You ain't got enough Black people in jail to tell you what the outcome of drugs are? You don't have enough families that are broken apart because of the war on drugs? You don't have enough children who are premature and suffer from addiction today? I have friends who were crack babies, right? That was my generation, right? And there's little things that I see in them, and you can see the side effects. They're a little slow. What I mean by that is not like when they speak, their demeanor is not as aggressive as mine. They don't have that same kind of, so you can see that. Like, I got a friend who it'll take him 15, 20 minutes to put on his shoes because his motor skills are gone from the side effects of the drugs. So, I mean, this conversation is very uncomfortable for folks who never had it.
Right. And that's why we're having it today. Because I have to ask you this question. Was there anybody in the community that pushed back against you, as the governor did, as far as saying, hey, listen, I think maybe you went way too far with this. Maybe your approach was not good. Maybe you were off. Was there anyone in your community that felt this way about what happened at the governor's house?
I got tons of those. I've been having that for the last 20 years, 20, 25 years, the things that I've been doing to help the community and the way I go about it. Listen, I don't got time for a meeting, for another meeting, to talk about the meeting before the meeting. Like, we're losing lives. People are dying. People are going in and out of prison. People are getting displaced. People are losing their homes. My godkids lost their home about a month ago, and they were waiting for a phone call from an elected official. They were waiting for a phone call from the Red Cross, and then a month later, they're still in the shelter that they don't have money to pay for. So for me, there's a lot of folks in the community who have their comments. And I appreciate your negative and your positive and whatever feedback you want to feed. But don't sit at home and criticize what you're not doing. Before you hold me accountable, hold yourself accountable for the lack of interest, for the lack of representation, for the lack of concern. Because when I had 300 plus kids playing at Clifford Park from April to November, kids that I was steering off of the street corners, no one paid attention until that young man became a shooter. No one paid attention till that young man got a life sentence. But I did. I noticed when he was 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, because I was him. I had to live that lifestyle and figure out what was the best way to get out of it. So again, any comment, any input, join me Thursday nights from 6 to 7 on Mass and Cass. And then we can go from there. We can have a better conversation so you can see why we have to speak up, why we have to continue to advocate. We have 6 to 7 schools within walking distance from there. There's nobody safe in that area, including the folks looking for services.
Right. Now, I'm listening to you talk, and to some, they may say, gee, she's aggressive. I would never listen to him talk. The reason for this show is to let people know that we may not agree with everything someone does, but we have to open up our eyes and our ears and broaden our minds and know that there's a gray area in everything. So this means that this is not aggression, this is passion for where you live, for where your children once lived, for where you continue to live. And because you love the place that you live, you feel like you want your kids to grow up in an environment that's safe for them. Why is it, Mr. Governor, that my kids have to go outside and see needles and see people, abusing themselves and harming themselves in a way that not only do you get upset, but you feel bad for them? But Mr. Governor, you walk outside of your house and you see none of this. So why not recreate this and put this in front of your house so that if you're not going to answer my emails or my phone calls, here you go, I'm going to show you this.
We're teaching kids at the Mason and Orchard Gardens and the Blackstone School, which is a stone throw away, literally on the mile, not even like on the mile, how to respond to needles. And watching people inject in the schoolyard and watch people fornicate in the schoolyard and watching people defecate in the schoolyard as young as kindergartners. We had 2 kindergartners between the 2 schools get pricked. And for me, as a father, I'm in my daughter's room. As you can see in the back, she's doing her laundry, she's cleaning. I'm a father first. So my aggression is my personality because, thank you, bro. It's my son, Jason. You want to say hi?
Hi. Hi.
That's my soulmate right there. He's going to be 3 times as much as me, and he's way more aggressive than I am. And like I told him, that's an attribute because there's things in this world that you can't be too passive when there's things that affect you as a person. Now, I got a daughter who calls me Blueberry. She calls me Blueberry because I'm a loving father, not because I'm aggressive with her, because I give her the love that she wants, not only her cheer teammates, the kids that I mentor. Like I said, I've been working in my community since I was 13. I'm 43. That's 30 years of community work as a team. So when folks come to me and say, oh, Mingos, you're a little rough around the edges, and come live my life. Come spend a week with me. I got a letter from a young man from Norfolk that my son read to me. I asked him, what did he get out the letter? He didn't really understand it because I've never said to him, you're going to jail or you're going to die. I always told him you're going to be whatever you want to be, and I'm going to help you get there. If I got to kick the doors in, I'm going to kick the doors in, but you got to do the rest of the work once that door's open. And we as Black men, we've suffered enough of where people always say, oh, y'all are too aggressive, or y'all are too this, or y'all are too that. Well, when I leave the house, I got to defend myself, not only from harm within my community, the police department, my employer. So again, I can be this bubbly, loving guy and love every single thing that walks by me, which that's me. That's how I truly am. But there's a certain point in your life where you're going to say, the kids in my community mean more to me than my freedom. I can care less about spending a week in B2 waiting for somebody to bail me out. I can care less because there's people who are there on things that they were doing to harm the community. So if I got to go sit in a cell for making my community better, that's an oxymoron in my eyes. Sign me up. Where do I get in line? Who's number 1? I'll be number 1. Because this is something like an elder said to me, sorry, Mingos. This is a conversation we had around this. Sorry, Mingos. I'm like, sorry for what? I let you down. I'm like, let me down for what? My generation was supposed to be the one to kick the doors in for your generation. We got caught up in the crack game because we had no employment. We had no homes. We had no education. So the easiest thing for us to do was to sell drugs. Easiest way for us to get a home, to start a business, to put money in our pocket, to feed our families. But no one said to me, going into Madison Park at 14, at 5'2", weighing 100 pounds, yo, you're going to a trade school. You can change your whole future by picking the right class. But they did tell me, you got a lawyer, you're going to jail, you're going to wind up dead. because those are the things that we feed our communities. And that's the narrative that we have to change. Black men are always going to be aggressive because we're the ones that got to walk around with unarmed hats. We're the ones that can't put our hands in our pockets to get our IDs. We're the ones that got to pull over and turn on our cameras. So excuse me for being a little too aggressive to make it home to my kids.
So, I was going to ask you, and I don't need to now because you answered the question. So many people want to know if there's ever been a time where you wanted to just give up and say, you know what, every man for themselves. Everybody, if you want something to change in your community, then you need to speak up. You need to write letters. You need to send emails. You need to demonstrate. You need to be out here, be in your feet on the concrete, so to speak, to do what I'm doing. And for me, if I was any one of those people who in the community who had something to say about the things that you've done, I would want you to be the voice of the community. I would want you to be loud and proud. I'm sure there's many people in your community who want to say something, but they're afraid for whatever reason. So I thank you for protecting other people's children, for trying to protect other people's children. I thank you for trying to make the community safer for this generation and generations to come, because it's not really just about just this generation. If you look at it, it's about what comes after. If we can change the laws now, 9 times out of 10, we're making it better for the next generation. So again, and I probably say this 5 more times before this interview is over, I thank you.
I appreciate you.
I thank you for standing up for something, because there's too many times that people in the community will sit on their porch and watch a whole bunch of things happen and say nothing. Now, they may go to the dinner table and talk about it, but they're not writing to the governor and talking about it. They're not writing to the mayor and speaking about it. They're speaking on it at a level that's not going to go anywhere past their table.
Well, again, that goes back to fear. We fear our true power. Like us as a community fear that. Like the best way I can say it is, when we get to a place in life to understand what our true meaning of life, we've gone through so much hardship that we don't beat ourselves up to the point where we feel like we're less than, we're that 3/5 of a man. We're only worth $8. Your skin tone is not beautiful. Your features, African features are not. So, for me, I try to put that out there off a rip. Like day one, this is me. Take it or leave it. Now, if you take it, we'll be friends for life. You can call me in the middle of the night and my phone is on. I've had the same number for 20 years.
Wow.
I've had people call me out of the blue. Mingos, I need you. Who's this? So-and-so. I didn't believe you still got the same number. I said, yo, I told you that 20 years ago. If the feds are looking for me, they know where to find me. I'm not running from nobody. I'm here for the long haul, because I looked into my heritage in high school and found out about this guy named Amilcar Cabral that was like the man, right, for Cape Verdeans.
Right.
How the hell you gain your independence with 2 bullets and 1 gun? You fight a whole sovereignty, a whole country with this little island in the middle of nowhere to gain independence. Why didn't you stop? Why didn't you quit? You only had 2 bullets and 1 gun. How did that work? The effort of the people. How people go about bringing people together. Our anger is our passion, which leads to change. Excuse me if you don't appreciate that, because you've been given a white spoon, a golden spoon, all your life. You have white privilege. You don't need to fight to get something to eat. If you're the baby of the family, you don't make it to the dinner table, guess what you get? Leftovers. You get whatever's left.
And if you don't want that, you get nothing. So that's the bottom line. You get nothing.
So we've been getting nothing because we're the last of the last. On social class, you have folks who are not, and they get where we don't at all. There's no way in the world that I'm only worth $8 to America. But as a slave in 1619, I was the equivalent of 40,000. I'm reading some stuff now, and it's telling me the slave trade had generated over 700 trillion dollars, equivalent to today. That the slave trade has generated over 700 trillion dollars. But I'm only worth $8 today. Again, take my character, assassinate it, make my value less than. Nah, not this black man. You're not going to put a dollar value on me. Okay, you're not going to make me feel less than because you want to feel empowered. If that's the case, then listen, man, see me on the corner, because we can do it two ways and we still can be friends. We can agree, or we can agree to disagree so we can come up with a solution, because agreeing to disagreeing is not fixing the issue.
Right. Right. So this brings me to this, because now we're coming up on election time and everybody, with number 45 in office and everyone's running for state representative. You, my friend, are trying to claim your seat as a Boston City Councilor. So tell me what you're trying to do in order to claim your seat at City Hall. What is the ultimate goal for you to claim the seat and say, hey, listen, this is why I'm doing this? Because a lot of people that know you and have seen you in the community know why. But there may be somebody that's watching or listening that hasn't a clue who you are. So why are you trying to claim your seat as a Boston City Councilor and City?
Diversity, real true diversity. I'm not knocking anybody for pursuing their paths in lives, but there's a population of us who hasn't gotten that opportunity from day one. We were passed along in school just to pass us along. We graduated just to graduate. No one inspired us to further our education. No one inspired us to look into Ivy League schools. No one inspired us to be the inspiration within our own community. We've always looked for inspiration outside in someone else's community, but never inside our community. I'm a kid that grew up on Dudley Street. And folks who know Dudley Street know what kind of street it is. I lived on East Cottage in Dudley. Very tough neighborhood in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, very, very tough. 9 out of 10 of us are supposed to be incarcerated or dead or in prison. I mean, in prison, dead, or deported. For me, that's true. I got a third of my friends are dead, a third of them are deported, and a third of them are in jail. I'm the 1 out of the 10 who identified a lot of the issues at a young age and made decisions to go against the grain, to be that fish that swims opposite the school. I didn't want to swim with the school. I'm not going to the net. I know what's at the end of this. So I decided at a very young age, follow my own instincts, follow my own desires, follow my own. After spending 22 years in the city, I realized what really goes on as a chapter president. I was a chapter president for 15 years. I ain't got no Suffolk degree. I didn't go to Northeastern Law School. Black and white. Only time that matters to me is on paper, black and white. I can read. Right. My dad couldn't. My mother couldn't. So I made sure I can read. Right. And I started to notice how different sections of the city would get 88% or 88 out of 140 small business loans, and then we don't get none.
Right.
And the folks who are sitting there that should be calling people, hey, yo, so this is Domingos, and I'm calling to let you know that application's due tomorrow. Did you get my email? Community association groups, we don't see them. And for you to find them, it's impossible because the way things are set up. So I want to bring that average person's voice to the table, where you walk into a room and it's academics. I'm in the middle of JP in a room full of academics. Can you change your tire? What's that? Your flat tire. Can you change your flat tire? Do you know how to unclog your dishwasher? Right. Can you flush the toilet when it's clogged? Like average things, not to knock nobody, but we all have a role to play. We all got some form of value to add to the conversation. But if we continue to allow folks who, Domingos can't come into the room, which now that happens now because he's a little too aggressive, or he takes over the conversation, or, well, listen, my guy, if you would have let me in a week ago, I would have said what I had to say last week, and then this week I had nothing to say.
You know what? I totally agree with you that to a lot of people, they may be put off by what they call aggression. And to most, a lot of Black and brown people or minority people are aggressive. And I don't, it comes across as aggression, but it's, we have passion for something. We're not being heard. So you are our voice. So I'm asking all the listeners, it's voting time, people. And it's time for us to get into it. It's time for us to vote for somebody who's not just talking about all of these things that he's going to do, that he wants to do. He's doing it. He even went as far as to get a protective order put on him just to let the governor know, hey, listen, my kids and your kids, they're the same. And I don't want them looking at needles when they come outside or when they're walking to school. When someone goes to work, this is not what they should have to see. We need to build more community. We need to build more programs. We need to build more places for people to go and get help, not more prisons. These people that are outside Boston Medical, prison isn't always the answer. So I say to everyone who can vote, vote for Domingos DaRosa for Boston City Council. Domingo, is there anything else you want to say to us before we end the segment?
Listen, I appreciate the time to come out and speak on things that, you know, they are uncomfortable conversations to have for folks who's never had them, you know? So I don't want to tiptoe around the issues. Full steam ahead. Let's get to it. Let's fix it. Let's figure out how we can make it comfortable for everybody. You know, I got my younger daughter with me and my son with me. You know, I include them on everything I do. And you know, they co-sign. Like she was crying when the state police gave me the stay away order, and then when I explained it to her and I said, "How do you feel?"
I remember that.
You want to get another one? I said, depends on what we're fighting, because she has to pick up needles before she can do a cartwheel, a handstand, or play on the playground. He has to do the same. So, you know, for folks who are listening and folks who might not want to be engaged, listen, man, the time is now. Don't wait for tomorrow, what you can do today. Help your fellow man. If not, we're going to have this conversation a year from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, because we haven't really addressed anything, especially in the Black community. A lot of these issues are ongoing. They're becoming generational issues that we can fix. I try to, you know, appreciate people for who they are, not for what I'm looking for. We're not going to be the same. We're not going to come at things the same way. But you know what we can do? We can uplift each other in anything that we choose to do. You know, I'll finish by saying this. I'm a dad first and foremost. Like before anything, like being a father was a blessing to me 22 years ago when I had my oldest son. He changed the way I looked at myself. That's where the self-value came into. Like, that's mine. It's like, I own this. What am I going to do to make his life better? And I did that. I changed my mentality. I changed the way I moved. I changed a lot of the things that were around me, putting a lot of things to bed, so to speak. But our kids are dying in many ways. And this issue on mass incarceration addresses all human needs. It's not just an issue about substance addiction or homelessness or lack of employment. It's a human issue. It's a piece that hurts. It hurts when I see somebody I went to high school with, yo, Mingos, can I get $1? I haven't eaten all day. And I'm like, yo, here's $1. Let's go get something to eat anyway. You know, watching them on Friday, watching folks walk around with a blanket on because they don't have a winter coat, or they don't have winter shoes, or they don't have gloves and hats. That's a human issue. That has nothing to do with politics, but they bring the politics into it because that's what the world spins on, politics. So we have to become political. We have to uplift our voices in our community by using our vote. by taking that one vote that you have and amplifying it with the community. People don't realize when these electeds look at numbers, that's all they see. They don't see Domingos. They don't see you. They don't see your family. They see the numbers. Come and see us as people. Don't just knock on our doors during election time. Come knock on my door. Like I said to the cops, y'all want some water? Y'all need to use the bathroom? Y'all a long way from home. So I appreciate you guys having me on today. I truly, truly do. November 17th, we're asking folks to call in on the Zoom meeting, email the city, your statements or your concerns, sign up for a verbal testimony. If you don't want to do a verbal, please send your emails in. We've shared that information where you can go and do it, because it's not contained to that one area. So in 6 months, it might be in your doorstep.
That's right. Domingos DaRosa from Boston City Council. I will be voting, and I thank you for coming on the show. I thank you for being a great support and a great activist for the community. I will stand and say this for everybody. I thank you for everything that you've done for us. We appreciate you. And stay blessed. And you have a lovely family. You guys have a blessed Sunday. And thank you all for joining in to Not Your Normal Conversation with Tawana B. Stay tuned. There's more to come on the next episode. Everybody have a blessed day.
You didn't let me say what I wanted to say.
Cool, what you want to say?
When you're talking about the blueberry, I wanted to.
Oh, you want to talk about Blueberry?
Yeah, because the reason why I did I called you blueberry is from the movie.
Yeah, I know. Tell her that.
It was a really tall. It was like a.
You see, they always harassing me. These kids.
I see that. I'm laughing because I'm like, I can hear them in the background talking. It's great to see you with your kids. I think that a lot of times people, they don't have that soft side where they see people as the people that they really are. You are someone's father, but more importantly, you want to be there for the community. So again, I always applaud you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And again, we're just gonna grow and build. That's the key. It's to grow and build and bring in different voices and different backgrounds and let us as a community heal. Like our community has never gotten a chance to heal, like ever. Like we go from one issue to the next, to the next, to the next. So when they come up with a new issue, like, damn, can we finish the last one? Like, we're still trying to fight the war on drugs. And then all of a sudden we got this other issue and then this other issue. And then, so it's to the point now that we're in the right space. We're in the right time and we're doing the right thing. You've gone through your ups and downs. I've gone through mine, and we're still standing. I think we're standing stronger and taller now than we were a week ago. You know what I mean? So I'm very hopeful that we